Branding is what people will talk about you when you're not in the room. It is Steve Jobs, like the way he used to come. People used to look forward to those presentations. So that's personal branding, right? Like Google as a brand is also trustworthy. People think they can safe search on Google, but at the same time, people also aspire to work at Google. When Tata Nano came out, right? सबसे सस्ता car everyone can afford,
Right,
1 lakh में car
right.
मिल जाएगा.
Mhm.
But soon it became but a car that's running into a lot of accidents and is not safe. And you put him in a cred commercial where he is fighting with people and saying, Indra Nagar ka gunda hu main, right?
Welcome to Better Engineering Management Podcast. And today we have with us Ambika Patil joining us. Ambika has experience in digital marketing and branding, and she is here today to help us with some questions on branding. Ambika, please welcome to the show.
Hi, Pradeep. So nice to be here. I really love your show, and I'm so glad you got in touch with me, and we're doing this.
Welcome. Ambika. Ambika, please let us know briefly about yourself, like what you have been doing and how do you deal with branding daily.
Yeah, so I'm a marketing professional, but I've done content branding marketing for 10 plus years in early to mid-sized startups. I've worked with D2C brands, B2C brands, cybersecurity, SaaS, the works. And I think being in a startup ecosystems really sort of built me up to understand branding in the trenches, understand how founders work, how founders think. And that's been such a great and enriching experience for me right from the start. And currently, I am running my own business. I have started thing called Condiment Company, where I sell sauces and dips. Food has always been a passion of mine, and I'm putting all my uh, branding know-how into that now, while I also consult.
That's awesome, Ambika. Great to know all that. Okay. So, Ambika, let's start with the basics, okay?
Sure.
What is branding exactly and why is it important?
Okay. So, whenever I talk to any client, right, like most of my clients are people who are great subject matter experts, but who are just starting off with doing marketing for their business, and they're very enthusiastic about brand. And what I usually tell them is, branding is what people will talk about you when you're not in the room, right? So, uh, the kind of image that you build for yourself, uh, that sort of supersedes you. Is what branding is. Basically, I think at the crux of it, it is reputation and how people remember you, and the things that you do that set you apart, that make people choose you or a particular brand over something else. So
Okay.
that's
And
branding.
what is the difference between, let's say, personal branding, corporate branding, and product branding? Okay, these three branding terms we often hear, right? So,
Hmm.
do you see a clear differentiation between them?
Sure. I think the approaches to each of them are different, right? If I had to explain, I think a great example would be personal branding. The epitome of it is Steve Jobs, like the way he used to
Mhm.
come and present, and have like
Okay.
people used to look forward to those presentations. So that's personal branding, right? Like a lot is carried on how people perceive that individual. So that is personal branding. And corporate branding is Apple, right? Like Apple is corporate branding, like the aspirational value that it carries and what it stands for. That is corporate branding. And product branding, of course, is iPhone. How a product does specifically within a company, within a corporate structure,
Yes.
within
Okay.
Apple, for example, in this
Mm.
iPhone is a great example of product branding. And I don't think I have to say anything about how beautifully all
Mm.
these three things have been marketed or branded
Yes. Mm.
and sort of brought together for people.
Yes, I think that explains it because if you see, think about Steve Jobs in that context, right? It simply means that personal branding probably means your skills, your values, and kind of what kind of connections you are ready to make, your approachability, everything kind of your personality is essentially becomes very important, right? There.
Yes, yes, yes. And he did
Okay.
such a great job at it, right? Like,
Right.
uh, he's left a legacy which nobody
Right.
is able to sort of fill in.
Correct.
Yeah.
And when it comes to corporate branding, I would say maybe it has something to do with quality, probably. Like in case of Apple, right?
Mm.
Whatever products they make, they are very high quality. So maybe
Yes.
those kind of things will be related, and kind of there is an image also. You are superior if you're carrying certain
Yeah, yeah,
products
it's
from
very
them.
aspirational, right? Like
Right,
a
right,
lot of people aspire to have Apple products,
right.
specifically an iPhone.
Specifically, which is the product branding, right? So
Yes,
how your product is kind of stands separate, how you differentiate a product from rest of the market, right?
yes, yes.
Obviously,
And corporate branding also, like, of course, a big part of corporate branding is also employability. Like, for
okay.
example, Google as a corporate
Mm,
brand is also, like,
mm,
Google as a brand is also trustworthy. People think they
okay.
can safe search on Google, but at the same time, people
Right,
also aspire to work at Google, right? So that's
right.
also a part of corporate branding.
Okay, so one is what you are, and another is how people perceive you, basically. What
Correct.
kind of aspirations they kind
Yes.
of associate with that brand and that particular corporate or group of products or what you say, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
interesting. And we also hear a lot of terms like, PR, image management, and etc. Particularly when it comes to a lot of influencers, celebrities, and businessmen, right? What is the significance of these terms? Do these all terms relate to branding in some manner? And because, when you are browsing through media, right, you will come
Hmm.
across all these terms.
Hmm. Uh, so I think a great way to explain it is, see, branding is what you stand for, and PR or public relations is how you communicate it to people, right? Like how your
Okay,
team communicates it to people.
okay,
And
okay,
for example, let's say a celebrity gets into trouble, right? Like, for example,
okay,
now Samay Raina is in trouble. How his team talks to the public, talks to people.
okay, okay.
And our famous podcaster is in
Hmm,
trouble too.
right,
So how their team communicates that to the public, how they do damage control,
right,
that's PR, right?
okay.
And image management.
Basically,
Uh,
the management of the image with the public is what PR
Yes,
is. Huh?
yes, yes. And PR is a great tool to sort of manage the brand. For example, when Tata Nano came out, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, the idea was सबसे सस्ता car everyone can afford,
Right,
1 lakh में car
right.
मिल जाएगा.
Hmm.
But soon it became, but a car that's running into a lot of accidents and not safe. Um, I think a great rebrand for Nano would have been, the smartest and affordable car or something like that.
Okay,
I
okay, okay.
always wonder if it could have been rebranded that way. But coming back to PR and image management, see, a lot of like personal brand PR and image management like go hand in hand. For example, the way some people are perceived, right? Like cricket is a great example for that. Like Dhoni is perceived as Mr. Calm, and Dravid is perceived as Mr. Dependable. And sometimes branding either sort of goes with it, like with Dhoni, they sort of continue to hold that image of, oh, Mr. Calm, Mr. Confident, and who has everything under control. Or you do a twist on it and you take the wall, Dravid, and
Okay.
you put him in a cred commercial where he is fighting
Okay.
with people and saying Indra Nagar ka gunda hu main, right? So that's branding for you.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, it's a lot of play, right? That's why it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun.
Basically, what a real personality is, you take some elements out of them and
Yeah,
you kind of market them more, and all many kind of products or the things that they want to kind of associate with it, kind of get related to those particular qualities of those individuals, which becomes a brand in a way. And for example, as you mentioned, Dravid, right? He's known for reliability, right? Not
correct.
reliability actually. I don't know whether that's
The
the correct
wall,
word because he
right?
will,
He was called,
yeah,
yeah, Mr.
someone who
Dependable.
never fall, right? Very dependable. So if there are some products in the market which for which dependability is important, they will connect with Dravid and kind of
And they did
market
that,
those
right?
products.
Like for the longest time, they did that. And I think the marketing and branding genius came out with Cred saying, you know what, we're going to take that and we're going
Hmm.
to turn it on its head because people also like shock, right? So
Right.
for people to see uh, Dravid say, Indranagar ka gunda hu and then pick up a fight, and that is a shock value that really works. So
Something
yeah.
which is completely opposite of his personality, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
And people
So
love to see that.
basically, marketing and sales ideas have combined here in a way, right? But with
Yeah.
branding, of course.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. And on the other flip side, we are talking about Dhoni, who is probably slightly similar personality, but kind of different also. And so people who will kind of want to associate with someone who has won everything, all kind of championships,
Right.
those kind of products would kind of fit with in Dhoni's portfolio,
Yeah, and who's a
right?
very likable
Very
and
likable, right?
yes,
Mass following, and everyone likes him, right? Whether it's from people
exactly.
from villages or city, and everybody kind of wants to,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
aspire,
And look at how CSK has sort of piggybacked on it, right?
right?
Calling him
Okay.
Tala and uh
Hmm.
like that's a great example of uh combining personal brand with
Right.
product or corporate
Okay.
brand.
Interesting question is like you very say teams like PR and all those, right? Let's say branding, image management. So, so the majority of work here is essentially what you are. And then there comes a team, right? Which is the
Yes.
PR team, we will say. And that team has to kind of
Curate.
communicate what that person is to large number of audience, right? Increase the audience of that person and also maintain the image, right? That people don't perceive him as something which doesn't stand for some kind of
Yes.
miscommunication doesn't happen, right? That's what
Mhm.
the whole team is
Yes.
about.
Yes,
Okay.
it is a lot of work,
Okay.
and it's the same for corporate branding, right? When back when I did branding for EasyTap, which is now Razorpay Pause, it was the same, right? You weave in the ethos of the organization, and then there is an entire leadership team, and then all of them have different views of how the brand has to be perceived from a PR standpoint, and sort of strike the right balance and then communicate it to your PR team and then get them to get the right media to you, the right podcasters, the right publications. So that is what happens in the background when the cogs turn.
All the dots have to connect. Branding is not just one step, right? How you market yourself, how you publish yourself, how you are kind of seen in certain videos, how you are seen in certain ads, everything has to kind of align with your what you stand for, basically.
Yes, yes, what you say, what you wear, everything.
Hmm.
Everything
Okay.
comes into play when it is. And that's exactly how, like, if you look at an individual person also, right? Like, look at a very low, small level as like a person. You perceive a person a certain way. Like, look at how you used to perceive a few teachers in school, right? For example, certain teachers were really scary, certain teachers were fun, certain teachers
Right.
were friendly.
Right.
So it is, I think, the same way, and that stays with you, right? Like throughout the entire school year, their brand
Hmm.
is the same. So that's
Right.
why when someone talks about brand, they say, for example, they'll say Pradeep's brand of professionalism, right?
Hmm.
Something like
Right.
that. So
Okay.
that sort of thing, because everything that we do sort of comes back to us and reflects on
Okay.
us.
Okay. And the question is like this branding, whole exercise of branding, right? Is it a one-time thing or is it a continuous exercise which needs to happen over a period of time?
Definitely, it is something that has to. It's a cog that keeps turning, right?
Okay.
It's like training a muscle. The
Mm-hmm.
more you work it, the more you take it to the gym. The more challenges you throw its way,
Mm-hmm.
the better it builds.
Okay.
And if you look at damn good brands, right? Like Pepsi and Unilever, as in different products under Unilever, they've all sort of rebranded at different points of time. So I think that's an example of how you need to keep doing it, even if you're already established, even if you are uh, already great in the market, it's an exercise that never stops. So that's what I usually tell people who I work with, that you never stop branding.
So, Ambika, tell me one thing. Do legal issues like, label and logo and what to say, trademarks, copyright, all these things also fall under the gambit of branding? And for example, let's say someone else creates a YouTube channel with the same name as mine and starts
Mm.
pushing similar content. Can branding protect me in that case?
Uh, yes and no. If you've trademarked, yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think there's still intellectual property that you can sort of show in the court and make a
Okay.
case for yourself.
Okay.
But branding plays an important role in sort of creating a trademark for a person, or rather, if you
Okay.
registered it, then it becomes a trademark. But then,
Mm,
what I
mm,
mean is that your brand is your identity, right? Online.
mm.
The
Okay.
example that you gave, for example, if
Mm,
you are a
mm,
YouTube influencer, or if you have a YouTube channel and somebody
mm.
copies the name or the kind of content that you do, that's your brand.
Right.
And you can definitely use that to make a case in the court.
Right.
And I think in that way, brand and trademark sort of go hand in hand, right? At
Right.
least in the way people perceive you.
Okay.
If you like take an example of people always say Xerox.
Mm.
Uh,
Right.
like no one says, like it's actually photocopy, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And but people always end up saying Xerox, and
Mm,
yeah, so that's a great example of how branding has been done well. But
mm,
yes, to answer your question, branding equals to sort of legal protection in case you've been trademarked. Even otherwise, once you've created a brand for yourself, you can create a
mm.
case for yourself in the court.
Okay. You can kind of generate substantial material and kind of protect yourself, your branding or whatever you have stood for, if there is sufficient amount of branding material you have. But
Correct.
to be on safe side, it's better to always trademark your things and kind of have a
Absolutely.
legal protection also.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, okay. May not be very closely related to branding, but I think branding is more like image. But
Correct.
the legality
The
side of it is
legalities
kind
of
of,
it is different. Yes.
yes,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yes.
They go maybe going hand in hand, but not necessarily linked each
Yeah,
other all the
like you could have a logo, right? Or a
time.
name. For
Mm, mm,
example, when we were building different names in an organization that I worked with for different products, we were trying to
mm,
trademark them.
mm.
And when you go to the organization to trademark it, they tell you whether that is possible to be trademarked or not, right?
Right.
So they come back with suggestions of what is okay, what's not okay. A venture that
Okay.
I worked with when we wanted to register the company, it's the same, right?
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Uh, and Amita, also tell me, can you, without taking any names, can you kind of give some real world use cases where, for any company or any organization, branding has changed the game for them? Like after kind of going through an exercise of branding, or whatever they were offering, or they had an image change or something like, really.
No, not necessarily image change, but I could
Mm,
talk to you about a few brands that I personally like, right? And
okay.
this is something that I've enjoyed since childhood, like
Okay.
looking at brands and how they're branding.
Right. Okay.
Um, and I personally, like when we talk about branding, right at the top for me is Fevicol.
Okay, okay.
We all remember the Fevicol ads, the
Right,
Parle G
right.
ads that were done in that generation, and they have been,
Mm,
consistent with their branding and their
right,
advertisement. We all know the whole "Pakde Rehna, Chhodna Nahi,"
right,
and
right.
the Fevicol ka jod hai, टूटेगा nahi, all of that. So
Correct.
that's a great example, I feel, of
Okay,
branding
okay,
done right.
okay,
The other one is Amul, the
okay.
Amul girl, right? We see the
Mm-hmm.
hoardings even now across the city, and they're so relevant,
Right,
and there is social commentary
right.
through
Okay,
the ads. I think they
okay,
sort of cracked it, and of course, using tagline like "the taste of India."
okay, okay,
Um, I think that was branding done right. Um,
okay,
a few FMCG brands that I would definitely like to mention is
okay,
Pears.
okay.
The I personally like, I think most millennials and Gen Xers will sort of relate to it. I used to like do that, seeing through the soap, for example, which was
Okay.
done through their branding.
Right,
And I
right, right.
think that really helped the brand.
Okay,
Bringing in the factor of the mother-child relationship, especially mother-daughter
okay,
relationship. And
okay,
I personally believe Unilever has done a great job with that, sort of
okay,
understanding those emotions and weaving them into it. Um,
okay,
Santoor also, for that matter,
okay,
which is of course
okay,
not Unilever, but then they have done a great job of it,
mm,
is what I
okay.
feel. But yeah, we can talk more. What are the brands that you like and sort of
Mm,
you've always
you
enjoyed
started
wearing?
with Apple, right? And we are all software engineers. Can't resist that.
Yes.
But as you said, apology and all those things, right? Those things are ingrained in our mind also because we have seen so much of them as children. And you said correctly, like ads have done a very major role, right? What kind of ads they have created. And those ads are also changing with society, right? For example, earlier they used to give a lot of importance to relationship, let us say, mother-child relationship, as you mentioned, right? These ads have been kind of conceptualized, let's say, 20 years back, and people are still watching them because there's a
Yes.
strong bond, and the same
Yes.
thing they are trying to reflect in their bond, in their brands also, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you see recent ads like, iPhone ads or whatever ads we say, they are targeting more towards how important you think you are, kind of, in that direction,
Yeah.
or you deserve this. Those kind of
Yes.
statements are more often. So, in a way, what is the general mindset of society towards things, towards how they treat others and how they are treated by others? All that thing is kind of adopted, put
Yeah.
into these ads, and these ads then become your brand, right? I mean, in a
Yeah.
way, they are kind of promoting the brand, right?
Yes, yes. And I think just when you were talking, I was thinking one of the brands that I think did great with jumping back into sort of people's vision. I mean, though they always were doing well, was when Vodafone introduced Zuzu
Mhm.
during cricket matches, right?
Right, right,
Like
right. Okay,
that was just brilliant branding
okay.
and advertising because. Uh, One, of course, your placement is great. You're doing prime
Mhm.
time television, and then you're
Right.
using Zuzus. And similarly
Mhm.
with Flipkart, right? Using children to sort of emote adult
Mhm.
emotions as
Right,
the
right,
characters. So I think many examples that we can look at just in
right.
India.
Sure. Great. And I think it was a great discussion. Any lasting comments you would like to give to any people who are kind of going into brand management and what they should keep in mind? Let's
Hmm.
say if you want to take it as a profession
Hmm.
and you want to kind of, as we're discussing all the way, right? Like you want to kind of imbibe the personality of that particular corporate into a brand via ads or via any other means. What are some of the things that they should keep in mind?
You have to be great with content, right? Like
Okay.
you have to be a person who reads.
Okay.
And it could be anything, right? You could choose the poison of your choice. Whatever
Okay.
you read,
Okay.
fiction, non-fiction.
Okay.
I read fantasy fiction, right? That helps me a lot with my thinking.
Okay.
So whatever the equivalent of that is for you,
Okay. Okay.
um, and learn to do storytelling. And a
Mm-hmm.
great way to do that is to really romanticize a lot of things that happen in your own life.
Okay.
One of the things that I learned is I was not too keen on things like meditation and manifestation and things like that. But
Okay.
then the reason I do it sometimes, even now, is because I realized when I do sit and write down things and sort of romanticize and look into the future, I become great at branding. Become great at my work. So, because
Okay.
it's storytelling, right? You're telling a
Right.
story to
Right.
yourself. So,
Right.
become great at telling stories. Write
Yeah.
as much as you can. No one has to
Okay.
see it. It could only be for your eyes, or let everyone see
Okay.
it, let everyone comment.
Right.
Be okay to go out there and fail.
Okay.
uh, uh, Try. Do not
Okay.
try. Do not get stuck in the planning process. Try
Okay.
to try to create content of your own. That's the only way to
Okay.
understand a company's brand better. And
Okay. Okay.
read books like Shoe Dog and others, which helps a lot with understanding how the big guys have done it, and watch
Okay.
documentaries on Nike. The documentary on Nike, for example, is great. And
Okay.
yeah, so that's mostly it.
Sure. I think that was great conversation, Ambika. Thanks for joining us. And I'm sure people who are kind of trying to, go into branding, both as a professional, people who want to build a personal brand, they would get something out of this discussion, like what are the top things that they should keep in mind. Don't
Mhm.
go too much all over the place, and probably you should focus on what you stand for, and then
Yes.
start there.
Yes.
Maybe you will create a stronger brand rather than being all over the place and involving
Yes.
too many, people kind of.
Yes.
Maybe I'm just thinking out, loud. So,
Yeah, and just to add to that,
mm,
one of the things that I see a lot of millennials do right now is sort of write
mm,
off Gen Zs.
mm,
My advice to millennials is don't do that. I think they are the
okay,
future of how content is going to be created and consumed, and they're going to be the biggest consumer market soon.
okay,
They're already consuming at a rate in with at which we did not, like millennials did
right,
not. So don't
right,
write off Gen Zs. I think they come with great ideas. Wherever I
okay,
work, if I have a Gen Z person on the social media and content team, it's usually great.
okay,
And I take off the millennial manager and I say, hey, you manage yourself because I think you're doing great. To Gen Zs, become a little more manageable. We
okay,
love your creativity,
okay,
but I would like to keep deadlines.
okay, sure,
So
understood.
that's about it.
I think point well taken. All the Gen Zs and millennials who are listening to this, you are greatly kind of respected for your work, for the creativity and the energy that you are bringing in. Also, be
Yes,
a little bit more manageable is what I am getting of you.
yes,
Okay, sure. Very interesting. Thank
yes.
you, Ambika. Thank you for joining us on the conversation. We will connect
Thank you
again.
so much,
And
Pradeep.
yeah,
It was so great talking to you. I wish you all the best with your podcast, and yeah, talk to you soon.
sure. Thank you, Ambika. Have a nice day.
You too.